My name is Amber Wilson, and at 28 years old, I was finally heading home for Christmas after missing the last 3 holiday seasons. As a pediatric nurse at Boston Children's Hospital, I was excited to share my recent promotion with my family. Little did I know that my homecoming was less about celebrating my achievements and more about my sister Stephanie and the rest of my family having a convenient babysitter for 9 children during the holidays. When I accidentally overheard their plan, something inside me finally snapped. Before I continue with my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about standing up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more authentic life experiences. Growing up as the middle child between my older sister Stephanie, who's now 32, and my younger brother Ryan, who's 24, I always played the role of the responsible one. Our parents, Richard and Diana Wilson, raised us in a cozy suburban home in Minnesota, where I learned early on that being helpful and reliable was my ticket to parental approval. Amber always knows what to do in a crisis, my mother would brag to her friends. She's so responsible, unlike her siblings. That reputation followed me throughout my childhood and into adulthood. While Stephanie was allowed to be dramatic and demanding, and Ryan could be carefree and spontaneous, I was expected to be the steady one, the fixer, the eternal helper. This dynamic shaped not just how my family saw me, but how I saw myself. After high school, I pursued nursing, a choice my family considered perfectly suited to my nurturing personality. I worked incredibly hard through nursing school, specializing in pediatrics, because I genuinely loved working with children. 3 years ago, I accepted a position at Boston Children's Hospital, one of the top pediatric hospitals in the country. Moving to Boston was the first time I'd ever prioritized my own goals over family expectations. My career had flourished in Boston. I'd recently been promoted to charge nurse on the pediatric oncology floor, a position that came with significant responsibility and a much-needed salary increase. This Christmas would be the first time in 3 years I'd be able to go home for the holidays. In previous years, I'd volunteered to work the Christmas shift so nurses with children could be home with their families. This year will be different, I told my colleague Megan as we finished a 12-hour shift in mid-December. I've bought amazing gifts for everyone. I even found those limited edition sneakers Ryan's been wanting and a beautiful cashmere sweater for my mom. I'd been looking forward to this Christmas for months. My suitcase was packed with carefully wrapped presents that had cost more than I should have spent, but I wanted to make up for my absence. I'd even splurged on a round-trip first-class ticket, a luxury I never allowed myself. The drive from the Minneapolis airport to my childhood home in Woodbury took about 40 minutes. As I navigated the familiar streets, now decorated with festive lights and plastic snowmen, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Being around my family always brought out complicated feelings in me. I loved them deeply, but I also felt the weight of their expectations. Our family home looked exactly as I remembered it, a 2-story colonial with green shutters and a large wreath on the front door. The driveway was already full with my parents' cars and Stephanie's minivan, so I parked on the street. Before I could even grab my luggage from the trunk, the front door flew open. "She's here!" my mother called out, waving enthusiastically. My father appeared behind her, and soon Ryan came bounding down the steps to help with my bags. "Look who finally remembered she has a family," Stephanie said as she emerged from the house. Her tone was light, but there was an edge to it that made me wince. The next hour was a blur of hugs, exclamations over how city-like I looked, and questions about my flight. My mother had prepared all my favorite foods, and the house smelled like cinnamon and pine. For a moment, it felt exactly like the homecoming I'd been dreaming about. "Your room is all ready," my mother said, leading me upstairs. We kept it just the same. My childhood bedroom had indeed remained frozen in time. Same lavender walls, same twin bed with the floral comforter, same bulletin board covered with high school achievements and photos. The only concession to my adulthood was a new set of towels laid on the bed. "I thought Stephanie and her family would be staying at their own house," I said, noticing a pack of diapers in the corner. "Oh, they'll be here Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. It's just easier that way, with all the festivities," my mother replied. And Rachel and Mark will be bringing their kids too. It'll be a full house, I nodded, trying to ignore the slight twinge of foreboding. A full house meant chaos, and in chaos, I was always expected to create order. After unpacking, I took a moment to center myself. This was going to be a wonderful Christmas. I was going to relax, enjoy my family's company, and not fall into old patterns. I'd grown into a confident, accomplished woman in Boston. I could maintain those boundaries here too. With that resolution firmly in mind, I headed downstairs to help with dinner preparations. The kitchen was warm and fragrant, and for a while, cooking alongside my mother felt comfortingly familiar. We worked in sync, falling into the rhythm we'd established years ago. "You always were my best helper," my mother said approvingly as I expertly carved the roast chicken. The comment made me both glow with pride and bristle slightly. At 28, with a responsible job managing life and death situations, I was so much more than a helper. But I smiled and continued carving, determined not to rock the boat on my first night home. Little did I know that the boat was about to be capsized entirely. After dinner, I offered to clean up while my parents settled in front of the television to watch their favorite game show. Ryan had gone out to meet some high school friends, and Stephanie was upstairs putting her youngest down for a nap. The house was finally quiet, and I was enjoying the solitude as I loaded the dishwasher. I had just finished wiping down the counters when I heard my mother's and Stephanie's voices drifting from the living room. Dad must have fallen asleep in his recliner, as he often did after meals. I was about to announce my presence when I heard my name. "Amber won't mind watching all the kids," Stephanie was saying. "She's a pediatric nurse, for God's sake. 9 kids will be nothing for her." 9 kids? I froze, dishcloth in hand. "I know," my mother replied. "It's actually perfect timing that she could come home this year. Rachel's bringing her too. Mark and Jenna will have their too. And your sister Linda said she'll drop off her grandchildren as well. Plus my 3, Stephanie added. That's what, 9 in total? James and I really need this break. The twins have been absolute monsters lately, and with the baby still not sleeping through the night. Everyone deserves to enjoy the holiday," my mother agreed. "And Amber loves children. It's not like she has a boyfriend or much of a social life in Boston anyway." I felt my cheeks burn at this casual dismissal of my life. I had friends in Boston. I dated occasionally. Just because I wasn't married with children didn't mean I didn't have a life. "Have you actually asked her if she's willing to babysit on Christmas Eve?" I heard my father's groggy voice interject. There was a pause before my mother answered. "Well, not specifically, but she won't mind. She never does, and I've already told everyone it's arranged. I mentioned to James's parents that they could join us for the adults-only dinner at the Riverside too," Stephanie said. "Since Amber will have all the kids at home." "Perfect," my mother replied. "The reservation is for 15 people now. It'll be so nice to have a grown-up Christmas Eve for once." I stood in the kitchen, completely stunned. They had planned an entire evening out, volunteered me as childcare for 9 children, and hadn't even bothered to ask if I was okay with missing the family Christmas Eve celebrations. Part of me wanted to storm into the living room and confront them immediately. But another part, the people-pleasing, conflict-avoiding part, held me back. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just their way of including me, knowing I was good with kids. But as I replayed their words in my mind, "She won't mind. It's not like she has a social life anyway," my hurt crystallized into anger. I'd flown across the country, spent hundreds on gifts, taken precious vacation time, all to be treated like the family's convenient childcare service. I was about to enter the living room when my father called out, "Is dinner ready yet? Everyone should be arriving soon." "Wait, dinner? Again?" I checked my watch. It was nearly 7, and I suddenly remembered that tonight was the extended family dinner my mother had mentioned in passing. My confrontation would have to wait. Taking a deep breath, I plastered on a smile and went to face the family gathering with this new, uncomfortable knowledge weighing on my mind. By 7:30, our house was bursting with relatives. Stephanie's husband, James, arrived with their twin 4-year-olds, Emma and Ethan, as well as their 8-month-old baby Lily. My younger brother, Ryan, showed up with his new girlfriend Madison, whom he'd been dating for just 2 months, but already seemed completely smitten with. "Amber!" my cousin Rachel squealed, giving me a tight hug. "It's been forever." Behind her, her husband Dave corralled their 2 children, 7-year-old Noah and 5-year-old Zoe, who were already racing around the living room with Stephanie's twins. "So good to see you," I replied automatically, even as my mind was still reeling from what I'd overheard earlier. Aunt Linda arrived next, talking nonstop about her grandchildren. "Tyler and Mia are so excited to spend Christmas Eve here," she told me, patting my arm. "They've been asking about their Auntie Amber, the nurse. I told them you'd probably let them play with your stethoscope." My cousin Mark and his wife Jenna were the last to arrive with their children, 6-year-old Jackson and 3-year-old Harper. By the time everyone had settled around our extended dining table, 9 children were running around the house, and 15 adults were squeezed elbow to elbow over my mother's traditional ham dinner. I found myself seated between Rachel and Aunt Linda, directly across from Stephanie and James. As dishes were passed and wine was poured, the conversation flowed easily among the adults, with periodic interruptions to referee disputes between children or clean up spilled drinks. "So Amber," Rachel said between bites of scalloped potatoes, "Mom tells me you're going to watch all the kids on Christmas Eve. You're a lifesaver." I nearly choked on my water. So it wasn't just Stephanie and my mother who knew about this plan. Everyone at the table had been informed except me. "Actually, I began, but Aunt Linda cut me off. It's going to be so wonderful to have an adults-only dinner at the Riverside. I haven't been out on Christmas Eve in years. We've got a private room reserved," my mother announced proudly. 15 of us, cocktails at 6, dinner at 7. "What time should we drop the kids off?" Mark asked, looking at me directly. I opened my mouth to respond that nobody had actually consulted me about this plan. But Stephanie jumped in. "Mom thought around 4 would be good," she said. "That gives Amber plenty of time to get them settled before we head out." "I'll bring some extra games and movies," Rachel offered. 9 kids is a lot, even for a professional." "9 kids is nothing for Amber," my mother said dismissively. "She manages an entire hospital ward." "Actually, I'm a charge nurse on 1 unit," I corrected, "and we're fully staffed with appropriate ratios of nurses to patients." Nobody seemed to register my clarification or the edge in my voice. "The best part is, we won't have to rush back," James said, putting his arm around Stephanie. "The kids can just sleep over, and we can enjoy a full night out." "Exactly," agreed Dave, Rachel's husband. "Noah and Zoe can crash anywhere. They're easy." "Tyler and Mia too," added Aunt Linda. "They'll be perfectly happy with a blanket on the floor." I sat there, fork suspended midair, as they continued to discuss the logistics of their evening out and the sleeping arrangements for all 9 children in my parents' house, under my supervision, without anyone having asked if I was willing to give up my Christmas Eve for this duty. "I made a list of all the kids' allergies and bedtime routines," Stephanie said, and I noticed she was speaking to my mother rather than to me. "I'll leave it on the fridge." "Perfect," my mother nodded. "Amber will have everything under control." "It's not like you have anything better to do anyway, sis," Stephanie added with a laugh. "Unless you've finally found a boyfriend in Boston you haven't told us about?" The table erupted in good-natured laughter, and I felt my face burn with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. How dare they make assumptions about my personal life? How dare they volunteer me for childcare without even asking? "Excuse me," I said quietly, placing my napkin beside my half-eaten dinner. "I need some air." I could feel eyes on my back as I walked out of the dining room and headed upstairs to my bedroom, careful to maintain my composure until I was out of sight. Only when I'd closed the door behind me did I allow the tears to fall. In the safety of my childhood bedroom, I finally let myself cry. They weren't just tears of anger, though I was certainly angry. They were tears of realization that my family still saw me as the compliant middle child, whose needs and plans were secondary to everyone else's. As I sat on my old twin bed, memories flooded back. Staying home from a high school dance to babysit Stephanie's kids. Giving up a summer internship opportunity because Ryan needed help with summer school. working double shifts at the campus coffee shop to help pay for Stephanie's wedding when she and James ran over budget. Always the responsible one. Always the one who sacrificed. Always the one who was expected to say yes. I'd moved to Boston partly to escape this dynamic, to build a life where I was valued for more than just what I could do for others. I'd made friends who respected my boundaries, advanced in a career that recognized my skills, and created a life that was fulfilling and meaningful. And yet, 3 days back in my parents' house, and I was right back in the same old role. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Amber? Honey? Are you okay?" My mother's voice came through the door. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath before opening the door. My mother stood there, looking concerned, with Stephanie right behind her. "You left dinner so abruptly," my mother said, stepping into the room. "Are you feeling ill?" I decided that honesty was the only way forward. "I'm not ill, Mom. I'm upset." "Upset? About what?" She seemed genuinely confused. "About being volunteered to babysit 9 children on Christmas Eve without anyone even asking me if I was willing to do it." My mother and Stephanie exchanged glances. "Oh, that," my mother said dismissively. "I thought you'd be happy to help out. You're so good with children, and it's just one night." "It's not just one night," I replied, my voice steady despite the emotion building in my chest. "It's Christmas Eve. It's family time that I've been looking forward to for months. It's my vacation that I specifically saved to spend with all of you, not as a babysitter." Stephanie crossed her arms defensively. "You're a pediatric nurse, Amber. 9 kids should be a piece of cake for you." "My professional skills aren't the point," I said, feeling my frustration rise. "The point is that no one bothered to ask me. Everyone just assumed I'd be okay missing the family dinner to watch everyone else's children." "We never ask you for anything," my mother protested. "You've been gone for 3 years, and the one time we need a small favor—" "Small favor?" I interrupted, which I rarely did with my mother. "Watching 9 children, ranging from 8 months to 7 years old, is not a small favor. And this isn't about one favor. This is about a pattern where my time and my plans are considered less important than everyone else's." "That's not true," my mother said, but her eyes slid away from mine, suggesting she knew there was some truth to my words. Stephanie stepped forward. "My kids have been looking forward to seeing their aunt. They haven't stopped talking about you since we told them you were coming home." "And I've been looking forward to seeing them too," I replied. "But as their aunt, not as their unpaid babysitter, while you all go out and enjoy a fancy dinner without me." "That's what family does," my mother said, her voice taking on the edge it got when she felt challenged. "We help each other out. If you can't handle this one thing, maybe you shouldn't have come home at all." Her words hung in the air between us, shocking in their finality. In that moment, something shifted inside me. If I couldn't come home without being exploited for free childcare, then perhaps I didn't need to be here at all. "Maybe I shouldn't have," I said quietly. I stood up and moved to my suitcase, which I'd only unpacked partially earlier that day. "What are you doing?" my mother asked, alarm replacing the sternness in her voice. "I'm packing," I replied, placing my carefully folded clothes back into the suitcase. "I'm not staying where I'm not respected." "Don't be ridiculous," Stephanie scoffed. "You're overreacting as usual." As usual? When had I ever overreacted to anything? If anything, my problem was that I underreacted, that I swallowed my feelings and did what was expected of me, regardless of the personal cost. "I'm not overreacting," I said firmly. "I'm finally reacting. There's a difference." My mother's expression changed from dismissive to concerned as she realized I was serious. "Amber, stop this nonsense. It's Christmas. Where would you even go?" "I have friends," I said. "Contrary to what you both seem to believe, I do have a life outside this family." My father appeared in the doorway, likely drawn by the escalating voices. "What's going on here?" "Amber is throwing a tantrum because we asked her to watch the kids on Christmas Eve," Stephanie said before I could answer. "You didn't ask," I corrected. "You told everyone it was happening without consulting me at all." My father looked uncomfortable. "Diana, didn't I say we should check with Amber first?" "Oh, don't you start too," my mother snapped at him. She turned back to me. "Fine, we're asking you now. Will you please watch the children on Christmas Eve so the adults can have dinner at the riverside? The phrasing made it clear that in her mind, I wasn't considered among the adults despite being 28 years old with a responsible career. That cemented my decision. No, I said simply. I won't. I came home to spend Christmas with my family, not to be the unpaid help. I zipped up my suitcase and grabbed my coat from the closet. You're really leaving? On Christmas? Stephanie's voice cracked slightly. The first indication that she realized this wasn't just a negotiating tactic. I'm really leaving, I confirmed. I deserve better than this, and until you all can see that, I need to be somewhere else. My father tried to intervene. Amber, honey, let's all calm down and discuss this reasonably. I'm perfectly calm, Dad, I said, and I've been reasonable my entire life. Where has it gotten me? Taken for granted and excluded from my own family Christmas. I carried my suitcase downstairs, aware of my family following behind me. In the living room, the extended family was still chatting over coffee and dessert, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Amber's leaving, Stephanie announced to the room, her tone suggesting I was being completely irrational. A chorus of confused questions erupted, but I continued toward the door. I'm sorry, I said to the room at large. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. I've decided to spend Christmas elsewhere this year. But who's going to watch the children? Aunt Linda asked, cutting straight to what was apparently the only thing that mattered. I guess you'll have to figure that out as a family, I replied, opening the front door. Merry Christmas. As I walked to my rental car, I heard Stephanie's angry voice calling after me. Thanks for ruining Christmas, but for once, I didn't turn back. For once, I kept walking forward, choosing myself over the expectations of others. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. The first hour of driving was fueled purely by adrenaline and indignation. I had no clear destination in mind. I just knew I needed to put distance between myself and my family's home. As the initial surge of emotion began to fade, reality set in. It was December 23rd. I was in Minnesota, and I had just walked out on my entire family's Christmas celebration. What have I done? I whispered to myself as I pulled into a rest stop along the interstate. The rational part of my brain reminded me that I had stood up for myself after years of being taken advantage of. The anxious part wondered if I had overreacted and ruined relationships beyond repair. I sat in the parked car, watching snow begin to fall in the glow of the parking lot lights, and tried to figure out my next move. My phone had been buzzing consistently since I left. I finally looked at it. 6 missed calls from my mother, 3 from my father, 2 from Ryan, and a string of increasingly angry texts from Stephanie. I scrolled past those to find a text from Ryan that simply said, I get why you left. They shouldn't have done that. Let me know you're safe, okay? That one message gave me the courage to start making a plan. Ryan understood. Maybe others would too, eventually. But for now, I needed a place to go. I scrolled through my contacts and landed on Jessica, my closest friend from nursing school. She'd moved to Chicago after graduation and had invited me to visit numerous times. We still talked weekly, and she knew all about my family dynamics. Heart pounding, I pressed call. Amber? Hey, aren't you supposed to be drowning in family togetherness right now? Jessica's cheerful voice answered. That was the plan, I said, my voice cracking slightly. But things have changed. Dramatically. What happened? Are you okay? Her tone shifted immediately to concern. I explained the situation as succinctly as I could, ending with, So now I'm sitting at a rest stop in Minnesota with no Christmas plans and feeling partly liberated, partly terrified, and partly like the worst daughter and sister in the world. There was a brief silence before Jessica responded. First of all, you are not the worst anything. What they did was completely out of line. Second, get your butt to Chicago right now. You're spending Christmas with me. Are you sure? It's so last minute, and you probably have plans. My plans now include you, she interrupted firmly. My roommate Natalie and I do this thing we call Orphan Christmas for friends who can't go home. We already have the food, the booze, and the cheesy holiday movies lined up. One more person just makes it merrier. Relief washed over me. Jessica, I don't know what to say. Say you'll be careful driving in the snow, and text me your ETA. It's about a 6-hour drive from the Twin Cities. So take your time. I'll have a glass of wine and a spare bed waiting whenever you get here. After hanging up, I sat for a moment, overwhelmed by gratitude for this friendship. Then I plotted my route to Chicago on my GPS and got back on the road. The drive gave me plenty of time to process everything. My phone continued to buzz periodically. My mother's messages alternated between guilt trips. I can't believe you would hurt us this way at Christmas, and anger. After all we've done for you, this is how you behave. My father's were more conciliatory. We can work this out, pumpkin. Please come back. I sent a brief text to Ryan. I'm safe. Heading to Chicago to spend Christmas with my friend Jessica. We'll call soon. His response came quickly. Good. Take care of yourself. Love you. Around midnight, I pulled up outside Jessica's apartment building in Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood. Despite the late hour, she was waiting at the entrance, wrapped in a puffy coat with snowflakes settling on her dark curls. You made it, she exclaimed, rushing to hug me as I climbed stiffly out of the car. I was getting worried about the roads. The last hour was pretty rough, I admitted, returning her hug fiercely. Thank you so much for this, Jess. What are friends for? She said simply, helping me grab my suitcase. Now come inside. It's freezing. Jessica's third-floor apartment was warm and inviting, decorated with strings of colorful lights and a small artificial tree in the corner. Natalie's already in bed, but she's excited to meet you tomorrow, Jessica said, as she showed me to her couch, which had been made up with sheets, blankets, and several pillows. Sorry it's not a proper guest room. It's perfect, I assured her, sinking onto the couch. It was more comfortable than my childhood twin bed had been. Jessica poured me a glass of red wine and sat cross-legged on the floor beside the couch. So, give me all the details you left out on the phone. I recounted the whole story. The excitement of going home, the crushing realization that I was just seen as free childcare, the painful confrontation, and the liberating but terrifying decision to leave. I still can't believe I actually walked out, I concluded. That's not me. I'm not the person who makes scenes and disrupts family gatherings. Jessica smiled. Maybe that's exactly who you need to be sometimes. The person who says no when no needs to be said. Stephanie thinks I ruined Christmas. Stephanie ruined her own Christmas by treating her sister like an employee instead of family, Jessica countered. You just refused to let her. That perspective was so different from what I'd grown up with that it took a moment to absorb. In my family, keeping the peace was always prioritized over personal boundaries. What if they never forgive me? I asked softly, voicing my deepest fear. If they can't forgive you for demanding basic respect, then maybe the relationship needs to change, Jessica said gently. But I think they'll come around. Sometimes people need a wake-up call to realize they've been taking someone for granted. I nodded, feeling exhaustion suddenly overwhelm me as the adrenaline of the day completely drained away. Get some sleep, Jessica said, noticing my drooping eyelids. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and we've got a whole new holiday tradition to introduce you to. As I drifted off to sleep on Jessica's couch, surrounded by twinkling lights and the lingering scent of pine candles, I felt something unexpected. Peace. For the first time in years, I would experience a Christmas without expectations, without the pressure to be the perfect helper, without sacrificing my own joy for others. It was terrifying and wonderful all at once. I woke late on Christmas Eve to the smell of coffee and the sound of laughter coming from Jessica's kitchen. For a moment, I was disoriented, but then the events of the previous day came flooding back. I wasn't in Minnesota with my family. I was in Chicago, having dramatically changed my holiday plans. She lives! Jessica called as I shuffled into the kitchen, still in my pajamas. A woman with short blonde hair and a friendly smile sat at the counter beside her. You must be Amber, she said, extending her hand. I'm Natalie. Welcome to Orphan Christmas. Thanks for letting me crash your holiday, I said, accepting the steaming mug of coffee Jessica handed me. Are you kidding? We love adding to our misfit crew, Natalie grinned. Just wait until you meet everyone else. Over breakfast, Jessica and Natalie explained their orphan Christmas tradition. For the past 3 years, they'd hosted a gathering for friends who couldn't make it home for the holidays for various reasons: distance, work commitments, family estrangements, or just the prohibitive cost of holiday travel. This year we have about 10 people coming for dinner tomorrow, Jessica said. But first, we have our Christmas Eve volunteer shift at the Children's Hospital. You volunteer on Christmas Eve? I asked. Natalie nodded. It started when Jess was doing her pediatric rotation. She saw how tough the holidays can be for kids stuck in the hospital, so we started organizing a little party. Now, it's become our tradition. Would you like to join us? Jessica asked. We could use someone with your professional expertise, but no pressure. I know you might want some space from kids after what happened. I considered this. The irony wasn't lost on me. After refusing to babysit 9 children for my family, would I now voluntarily spend time with sick children on Christmas Eve? But this felt different. This was a choice, not an obligation, and it was about bringing joy to children who were missing out on holiday festivities due to illness. I'd love to help, I decided. 3 hours later, I found myself in the playroom of Chicago Children's Memorial Hospital, wearing a Santa hat and helping a 7-year-old girl named Maya decorate a gingerbread house. Around us, about 20 children who were well enough to leave their rooms were engaged in various holiday activities with a team of volunteers. You're really good at this, Jessica commented as she passed by with an armful of wrapped presents. I smiled, watching Maya carefully place a gumdrop on her gingerbread roof. It's different when it's a choice, I said simply. The afternoon was surprisingly healing. These children, despite being hospitalized during the holidays, approached the activities with such joy and resilience. It put my own family drama into perspective, while also reinforcing that I had made the right decision. I deserved to be appreciated, not taken for granted. As the event wound down, a tall man with dark hair and kind eyes approached me. He wore scrubs under his festive sweater and had been reading Christmas stories to some of the younger children. You must be Jessica's friend, he said, offering his hand. I'm Michael. I work in the ER here. Amber, I replied, shaking his hand. Pediatric nurse from Boston. Ah, a fellow medical professional, he smiled. Jessica mentioned you had a last-minute change of holiday plans. That's putting it mildly, I laughed. Well, their loss is our gain, Michael said. Are you joining the dinner crew tomorrow? We could use more sane people in the mix. Should I be worried about the sanity of Jessica's other friends? I asked teasingly. Let's just say things get interesting when Sean starts mixing cocktails and Rachel breaks out her karaoke machine, Michael grinned. It's chaotic but fun, like a family gathering without the family baggage. Family without the baggage. The concept was appealing. I'll be there, I confirmed. After the hospital event, we stopped at a local market to pick up last-minute supplies for Christmas dinner. The store was crowded with harried shoppers making their own last-minute purchases. As I helped Jessica choose between 2 different types of cheese, my phone rang. It was Ryan. Hey, I answered cautiously, stepping away from the busy aisle. Merry Christmas Eve, sis, Ryan said. How's Chicago? Surprisingly great, I admitted. How are things there? Ryan sighed. Chaotic. Mom and Stephanie spent all morning calling around trying to find alternate childcare arrangements. Dad's playing peacemaker. The cousins are still coming over tonight. But now everyone's taking turns watching the kids. I felt a twinge of guilt, quickly followed by vindication. So they figured it out. Yeah, turns out when 9 adults actually share the responsibility, watching 9 kids isn't that overwhelming, Ryan said dryly. Who knew? How mad are they? I couldn't help asking. Mom's oscillating between hurt and angry. Stephanie was furious but seems to be calming down now that James pointed out they should have asked you first. Dad just misses you. And you? I'm proud of you, Ryan said simply. It's about time someone called them out on how they treat you. I should have done it years ago. His support meant more than I could express. Thanks, Rye. Listen, I don't want to pressure you, but would you be open to a video call tomorrow morning? Just you and me? I got you something I really want to see you open. Of course, I agreed, feeling a rush of affection for my younger brother. I'd like that. After hanging up, I rejoined Jessica and Natalie, feeling lighter. At least one family member understood my actions, and from the sounds of it, others might be starting to get it too. That evening, Jessica's apartment filled with friends dropping by with cookies, drinks, and small gifts. Michael from the hospital came, bringing homemade eggnog and asking if I'd like to grab coffee sometime after the holidays. A woman named Diana brought her dog wearing reindeer antlers. Two guys named Carlos and Keith arrived with a stack of board games. The gathering was lively, warm, and completely lacking in the undercurrents of expectation and obligation I'd grown accustomed to at family events. No one here expected me to be anything other than myself. No one needed me to take care of them or fix their problems. I could just be Amber, enjoying the company of new friends and the festive atmosphere. Around midnight, as the party began to wind down, Jessica raised her glass. To chosen family, she toasted. Sometimes more supportive than the one we're born into. To chosen family, everyone echoed. And I felt tears prick my eyes as I realized the truth in those words. Later, as I helped clean up while the last guests departed, Jessica bumped my shoulder gently. "You okay?" "More than okay," I said honestly. "I'm grateful. This could have been a disaster, but instead it's turning out to be one of the most meaningful Christmases I've had in years." "Sometimes the family we need isn't the one we're related to," Jessica said, echoing her earlier toast. "Sometimes it's the people who respect our boundaries and value us for exactly who we are." As I settled onto the couch for my second night in Chicago, I reflected on how dramatically my holiday had changed in just 24 hours, and how those changes, though initially painful, had led me to exactly where I needed to be. New Year's Day found me back in my Boston apartment, surrounded by unpacked bags and the gentle quiet that follows the holiday season. The week between Christmas and New Year's had passed in a blur of Chicago adventures with Jessica, Natalie, and their friends. I'd toured the Art Institute, ice skated in Millennium Park, and even gone on a coffee date with Michael from the hospital, which had turned into a dinner date, which had turned into plans to visit each other again soon. The Christmas Day video call with Ryan had been a bright spot in what could have been a difficult day. He'd shown me the chaos at my parents' house, all the adults taking shifts with the children, no one quite knowing how to organize the gift opening or the meal preparation, without me there to coordinate everything. It had been a revelation for them, he'd said. They'd never realized how much they depended on me until I wasn't there. "Mom actually had to change a diaper," Ryan had reported with barely concealed amusement. "I don't think she's done that since I was a baby." Now, as I unpacked my suitcase, sorting laundry, and putting away the few gifts I'd received from Jessica and her friends, I found an unexpected envelope mixed in with my clothes. It had my name written on it in my mother's distinctive handwriting. Ryan must have slipped it into my bag when I wasn't looking. I sat on my bed, turning the envelope over in my hands several times before finally opening it. Inside was a 3-page letter, handwritten on my mother's good stationery. "Dear Amber," it began. "I've written and rewritten this letter several times, trying to find the right words. I'm still not sure I have them, but I need to try." I took a deep breath and continued reading. My mother's letter acknowledged, for perhaps the first time, how much the family had taken me for granted over the years. She admitted that she'd never stopped seeing me as the responsible middle child, even as I'd grown into an accomplished adult with my own life and needs. "When you left on the 23rd, my first reaction was anger," she wrote. "How could you abandon us at Christmas? But as the days have passed, and especially after watching all of us struggle to manage what we'd thoughtlessly expected you to handle alone, I've come to understand why you felt you had no choice but to leave." There was an apology, somewhat stiff and formal, but an apology nonetheless for making plans that involved me without my consent, and for dismissing my feelings when I'd tried to express them. "Your father says I've been treating you as an extension of myself rather than as your own person," she wrote. "He may be right. It's a difficult pattern to break after so many years, but I want to try. We all do." The letter concluded with an invitation to come for dinner when I was ready, not at a holiday, not with any expectations, just a family meal to begin rebuilding what had been damaged. I placed the letter on my nightstand and checked my phone. There was a new email from Stephanie, I opened it with some trepidation. "I'm still mad at you," she began, which made me chuckle despite everything. Stephanie had never been one to sugarcoat her feelings. "But I'm also starting to understand why you did what you did. When I had to manage all the kids myself for 2 hours on Christmas Day, while everyone else was cooking, I wanted to scream. And that made me realize that's what we were asking you to do for an entire evening, without even asking if you minded." Her email wasn't as polished as my mother's letter, but in some ways, it felt more genuine. She acknowledged her selfishness and the fact that she'd been taking advantage of my nature for years. "I don't want to be the kind of sister who only calls when she needs a babysitter," she wrote. "I want the kids to know their Aunt Amber as a person, not just as the reliable help. If you're willing to give me another chance, I'd like to do better." I sat for a long time, digesting these unexpected messages from my family. They weren't perfect apologies, and years of established patterns wouldn't change overnight. But they were a start and acknowledgement that I deserved better, and a commitment to try. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Made it home safe? Chicago misses you already. Michael keeps asking when you're coming back." I smiled and replied that I'd arrived safely and was settling in. Then I took a deep breath and composed a message to my family's group chat, which I'd been avoiding since I left Minnesota. "I'm back in Boston and got Mom's letter and Stephanie's email. I appreciate you both taking the time to reflect on what happened. When I'm ready, I'd like to take you up on that dinner invitation. We have a lot to talk about." After sending the message, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Standing up for myself hadn't been easy, and the fallout had been painful, but it had also been necessary. For too long, I'd allowed myself to be defined by what I could do for others, rather than who I was as a person. 3 weeks later, I flew back to Minnesota for the promised dinner. It was a tense affair at first, with everyone on their best behavior, carefully avoiding potentially triggering topics. But as the meal progressed, the conversation became more natural. My father asked detailed questions about my work in Boston. Stephanie showed genuine interest in my new friendship with Michael. Even my mother made a visible effort to listen more than she spoke. At one point, Stephanie's eldest, Emma, climbed into my lap and asked if I would read her a story. "Not right now, honey." Stephanie intervened before I could answer. "Aunt Amber is having grown-up time. I'll read to you later." It was a small moment, but it signified a huge shift. My sister was respecting my time, setting boundaries with her child on my behalf. "Actually, I'd love to read one story," I said, smiling at my niece. "But just one, okay? Then I need to finish my dessert and talk with the grown-ups." Emma nodded seriously, and I followed her to the living room for a quick story while the others finished their coffee. When I returned, my mother had tears in her eyes. "What?" I asked, suddenly concerned. "Nothing bad," she assured me. "I just realized. I've never seen you interact with the children that way before. You've always been taking care of them because you had to, not because you chose to." "There's a difference." "There is," I agreed. "A world of difference." As I flew back to Boston the next day, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. My relationships with my family members weren't magically healed. There were still moments of tension, old patterns threatening to reassert themselves. But for the first time, I felt seen as an individual with my own needs and boundaries, not just as the family's built-in support system. That evening, I had a video call with Jessica to fill her in on everything that had happened. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Standing up to family is one of the hardest things to do." "I couldn't have done it without having somewhere to go," I admitted. "You saved my Christmas." "Maybe," Jessica smiled. "Or maybe you saved it yourself by refusing to accept less than you deserve." After we hung up, I noticed a text from Michael asking how the family visit had gone. We'd been texting regularly since Christmas, and he was planning to visit Boston in a few weeks. As I typed my reply, telling him about the awkward but promising dinner, I realized how much my life had expanded since that painful moment of overhearing my family's babysitting plans. By choosing myself, perhaps for the first time, I had opened the door to new relationships, stronger boundaries, and a more authentic connection with my family. It hadn't been easy. Standing up for yourself rarely is, especially when you've spent a lifetime being the person everyone else can count on. But as I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built for myself in Boston and the new connections I'd made in Chicago, I knew it had been worth it. Sometimes the most profound gifts we can give ourselves are the hardest to unwrap. The gift of self-respect, of boundaries, of demanding the consideration we deserve. My Christmas hadn't gone according to plan, it had gone according to my needs instead. And that had made all the difference. Have you ever had to stand up to family expectations during the holidays? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own needs sometimes. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your holidays always be filled with people who value you for exactly who you are.